This is the June 22nd meeting, work session of the town board, and the main topic for discussion this morning is the reaffirmation of the resolution for a town administrator. And what we're going to do is simply compare the resolution. And I think, does anybody have copies of the original resolution?
I do.
Okay, there it is. Oh, okay. And if you look at these documents, what we have done is basically incorporate the requirements of the resolution into the job specification. And I just felt it was incumbent that we share these all together so everybody can look at them together and make any adjustments or comments about it. We're halfway through the year at this point, and this is something that we've been planning to get to, and I think it's time that we all take a hard look at it and then decide whether to put it on the town board agenda and discuss it publicly. So I don't know if you all had a chance to look at it, but I'm looking for input from you.
It's going to be a real work session because I have not had time to. I've had a lot of my stuff in my file, but I haven't reviewed and compared what you have prepared versus what was approved. I had prepared a modified job description last year, and then I supplied that to the Budget and Finance Task Force, and to compare what some of their findings were. So a lot of the day-to-day stuff, there's a lot of overlap. And again, I haven't compared what I compared last year to what the current one is that you have here.
Let me tell you what we did here, Mike. We went through the resolution that had, well, how many points did they have here? 11 points or 12. And we basically took them and used them as the examples of work. So I had actually written the job spec up myself and then realized by looking at the resolution, most of the work was all done. So we went back and basically cut and pasted those 12 points into the job specification. So there really is tremendous similarity as to what was approved in the initial round. And
so this is just a restatement of the actual document that was approved.
that is the actual document that was approved.
Well, this is the minutes, right?
Well,
so the actual document was the resolution.
Yes, within the minutes is the document.
I think it's also important to clarify that the position of a town administrator was voted by the town board, it was approved by the town board. It was just a matter of the new town board coming in to hire and find this person to come in. So the position is placed.
They don't know if that's necessarily true.
It's not.
But that's
There were
what
two.
the vote was.
No, there were two conditions.
Oh, go ahead, Mike, you were
No,
there.
there were two conditions. It was
Right.
the first one, which was correct. It could not be filled until a new town board was in place. You're absolutely right. The second one was that the job description had to be reviewed by a new board, not that past
Right,
board,
and that's
to
what
make
we
sure
did.
the job description was what we were comfortable with before the position was filled. So it's just the extra piece there.
Yeah. Well, that's what
I think basically involves doing a new resolution.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, well, at the time I had concerns about the resolution that we approved, so, and we've had the luxury of time now in having the first task force offer their opinion of the position, and now the Budget and Finance Task Force having to intimately work within the town for 18 months or 2 years, and then offer their professional opinion on where they see the gaps in some of the job descriptions. So we didn't have that luxury 2 years ago.
I actually, in my opinion, they were off base on the second job description because they came at it as a financial consultant, which is not what the job is. And this was obviously an area of disagreement, and I still feel that same way.
It's all disagreement.
Yeah, I mean, it's, everybody's entitled to their opinion, but knowing the job as I do, I think that the first committee came pretty close to what the job description should be and what other towns incorporated as, rather than a financial consultant. I think that's why it's so important to still have a budget director, because I think that person really is the key financial person. Obviously, there's tremendous input from the town administrator, and they work very closely together. But that person is really your chief operating officer and operates in a different realm than the task force, and the task force had recommended, in my opinion. So that's why this job description sort of goes back to the original concept, and I feel it was closer, and well, actually, I think it was very good.
I'm going to send you all an email. Meant to do it earlier this week, and I forgot. It'd be worth attending if you have time. There's a seminar. I forget who's putting it on. It might be the County Association or some business group that, oddly enough, is doing a presentation on CEOs versus CFOs and where the overlaps are and how that's changed now. And I don't disagree with any of the findings of the first task force. What I know that the second task force brought to surface was when you start analyzing some of the things that need to be done going forward in any municipality, especially this town, and then who's addressing it, who's doing it. It wasn't for the lack of people not doing their jobs. There was nobody doing those things. So I'll give just one example is the capital improvement plan, the CIP plan. You know, we've all had input on it. Diane and I worked on it a little bit with some of the task force members and planning and building. You need somebody to own that. And something like that, if it falls within the guidelines of a town administrator and that person has time for it, great. It's very difficult to fall into the controller's position because they have that day-to-day functions of running the finances of the town. So there are things like that that you need somebody with a really high experience skill set. So he or she can work on things like shared services or putting together a capital improvement plan. Because once you have a CIP plan in place, it takes any of the controversy or politics or anything out of it because you know, okay, for the next 10 or 20 years, or even 30 years, these are the things that we're going to invest in capital, and here's what we're going to spend on, and you budget for it, and you put it into a multi-year plan. Same thing with shared services and IMAs, intermunicipal agreements, and even public-private partnerships. You need somebody to own those things, and it could be the town administrator. I'm not saying it can't, but I think those things, we need to really think hard about what goes in this job description, and can this person manage a lot of the day-to-day functions that currently falls on you or the supervisor, and take care of the bigger picture items that a controller may not just have the time for. But to move municipalities forward, especially this one, those are the types of things we need to do to figure out how do we do more with less? How do we figure out how to be more efficient and be able to do that analysis? If you're talking about shared services, who's that person who comes up with the concept, perhaps gets the grant money, brings 5 municipalities in town and says, I'm going to make something up. Okay, we're doing the paving for all these 5 municipalities, and we'll have all the equipment. But you guys have to do all this function for us. You need somebody with the right skill set to be able to take that on.
Yeah,
On a full-time basis.
I think you're really perfectly describing the town administrator.
If it's in the, no, that's what I mean is, if
Because
it's,
remember, this is not going to be their first stop. They're going to have this experience in other places. They bring with them this wealth of knowledge and this professional training, so they know exactly how to do those things.
I'm not saying they don't. My point is, you just want to make sure that the job description is spelled out specific enough, and because you're really almost combining 2 jobs. You're combining a lot of your day-to-day function, which is a lot. I know you work a lot, but then you're adding things on that nobody's addressing that have to be addressed for us to move municipalities forward. That's my point. So you want to make sure that the job description is tight enough, and it's specific enough, and it's still a 5-day-a-week job. It's not a 16-hour day job. You got to make sure that person can handle it. That's all.
Okay. Steve, John, Diane?
I didn't go back and look at what the finance task force recommended. I don't recall their, well, specifically in the job description that they put forward, but do remember, thinking that there was too much of an emphasis on as a CFO. Well, I see this as that's the operating, and I think that is what the town is lacking, is, the analysis function, if we can't get that, we'll figure out how to get it. But to me, it's the hands-on management. I know, Howard, just in terms of everything that you've taken on, I mean, there's so much that needs to be done, and I think if we get a good operating officer, I think that's where we're going to see, the town really be able to move forward. I mean, that's, to me, what's behind it.
In the same vein, even though I have been opposed to the idea of a town administrator, now being involved and seeing what people doing virtually 24 hours a day, it seems that way. We do need somebody in here to run the town, and somebody, I think it's a combination of the two task force. Both of their ideas, the COO, CFO type of operation, put it all together, like I said, so that we not only run the town, we run it efficiently, we find a way to use the funds we have in the best possible way. And, this is a good starting point. These 12 points that they had 3 years ago is a very good starting point. I think we have to expand a little bit, look at it, and add a little bit more to the job description and say exactly what we're looking for. And if we're going to do it, go out and hire the right person.
I think you're right, and if you know, I've been meeting with town managers and administrators throughout the year, and every one of them comes with a strong financial, analytical background. I mean, that's the training they get. At the same time, they're all very knowledgeable about how towns operate and the efficiencies. This is their professional training. They know the laws. They know the intergovernmental process. They know where the grant money is, and this is what their career is, and that's why it's we're reinventing the wheel here. I mean, these people already come equipped, and they're equipped.
No, I'm saying those are the type of people that we were looking to hire. We want to make sure that our job description matches the type of person we're looking for.
I guess my point is I don't think you could ever make a job description that's going to be perfect. There's just too many, first of all, it changes all the time. There's always new technology, there's new functions, there's new laws. So what you want is a qualified guy that shows that he's got a track record. I think it's really important to have a person that has demonstrated capability, not so much meets a written specification. I mean, it's really, it comes down to where the rubber meets the road is what they've done.
And I agree with that 100%. I definitely agree that a town administrator is needed in order for the town to have the continuity. Town boards may flow through, town supervisors may flow through. You need that continuity to happen. But I also feel having someone come in that right from the start knows what has to be done. He could see what we're doing, improve upon the methods that we're doing it, and has the experience to make it happen. I think we need a strong person to come in and analyze what have we been doing, what is right and what is wrong. There's so many areas that we really have not been focusing on that we should, as you had mentioned. And I think it's really important for this person to come in and actually get things done. So I think a lot of the points here may seem so important to us now, and new points may come up later on. I think it's an ever-changing, as any job should be. I don't want us to hyper-focus on these 12 points. I want us to realize what the end goal is to get a qualified person to come in here, manage the town for now in the continuity of North Castle, understand that these are some of the basics we're looking for, to have this person come in and implement these changes, implement projects that we want to have happen for now and in the future, and also understand that this is an ever-changing job. We may be listening out 12, 3 may go away, 3 new ones may come in. That person has to understand the flexibility of the job. And I know Howard is doing an absolutely amazing job, but it's very hard to think of the overall larger scope items when you're over here counting nuts and bolts. So I think it frees up Howard to do the things that he knows and wants to do, and it helps all of us to give a focus on the legislative and more long-term goals that we're here to do for the town. We have these more managerial things taken care of. How many emails have we all received from residents saying that this doesn't work, or the roads, or I have a problem? You know, those things can be taken care of because now we have a head person helping us to get this list knocked down, and that's what we're here for, is get the list knocked down, make the residents happy, make the town run efficiently, not only now, but in the future when we're not here. So we know we place someone here, given our knowledge and experience to this person, so that this person they can carry forward the goals that we've tried to achieve, as any town supervisor, any town board member would like to see happen. So I'd like for us now to really hyper-focus on these items. I want us to move forward, start interviewing, pick the best candidate out there. There's a lot of people out there looking for work. I'm sure we're going to get some amazing candidates coming forward. I want us to get this position in hand, because then it frees all of us up to do things that really have not been getting done lately, because there's so much to do. So, I'm glad to see we're at least talking about this topic. It's happening. I feel it's going to happen soon, and I'd like to see it happen soon.
I'd like to tell you the process I'd like to follow. I would like to have a committee put together, and they would be made up of people from the first committee that recommended this resolution, and people from the second task force. So we have people from both groups do the interviewing and looking at these candidates. I think it would be a nice mix, and I think it would be a good way to have them share their knowledge. So my process going forward would be to publish this, and as you probably know, there's a number of professional associations where these resumes or these job requests go out. I think we'll get quite a bit of feedback quite quickly from my talking to other town administrators locally. And I'd like to go ahead and start that process as soon as possible, because I assume it's not going to be something that we're going to find the first guy who walks in the door is the right one. We're going to want to look at some people. So it's a time-consuming process. So I've started to contact some of the folks that were on those different committees, and I'd like to do that. If you have any particular people you think would be good at that, or, have particular expertise, I don't want to go crazy with the size of the group. Maybe 5, 6 people I think is enough. So not everybody can be on it, but if you have particular people you think would be worthwhile to have on there, let me know, because I'm going to go ahead and start contacting additional people.
What's the next step on finalizing the job description?
I think I'm not sure if we have to discuss this in public. I think it would be appropriate to have it on the town board agenda and announce that this is a job spec that's been put together and that we are going to publish it.
We don't need a public hearing.
I don't think so. I don't think so. The resolution has been passed. I don't know if, I guess I'll have to talk to Roland to see if there is any requirement of that, but I don't know for sure.
I think if we change anything in it, would we have to just don't go on this?
Don't know. Well, I mean, if you do have a clause in the last one that's
I don't know if you need a hearing, but we need
a discussion.
Perform such other duties as.
Yeah, that's required. Yeah.
I mean, I think that, I really think, I agree with some of what's just been said. To me, we should have a good job description if everyone thinks these are, all kind of, these bullets all make sense. But it's more about, I think, having a very good interview process. So we're going to all be satisfied that this person has the adequate skill set to do what we think they should do, versus having, a 25-point, job description. So.
But I think, it does start with what we expect of them. I would agree with that. And again, I'll just go back to the way the first one was written and my modifications last year and the way this one's written. They're all things that need to get done in the town. That's obvious. But when you look at the priorities, and this is where I think we have the luxury of the work that the task force did, is they're just presenting to us, these are the things that we see that need to get done going forward, but it's nobody's job right now. So unless we address that, we're missing an opportunity. A lot of towns may have an administrator that have administrators that already serve those functions. Great. But I don't think it makes sense to just stick to what was boilerplate if we know that it's a different world even than it was 15 years ago. The spec that we used when it was approved 2 years ago was really a boilerplate that was used in Newcastle in 96 or 97. So if we, and the thing that we need to avoid, and I think we'll all agree on this, we don't agree on everything, but you can't design something where it's gonna feed into a deputy. So you have somebody who has too much to do, and they've got to get a deputy to do a lot of the grunt work for them. That we can't be going down that path. This person has to be able to be hands-on and do all the things that we need to get done, whether it's day-to-day and/or the bigger picture things. But I just think that we're falling short of, we don't address the bigger picture items. Like, we've discussed in the past, before you were on the board, our county roads, that we take over the county roads. The county's trying to do that. It's a long, drawn-out process. There's a lot of analysis to it. If the administrator in their job description knows that those are part of what they do, wonderful. I think it's important that
You're not going to put a
No, not a specific.
analyze county roads.
No, my point is, these are things that are facing the town now. So if that piece isn't part of their job description, and they just think all I'm responsible for doing is running the town, not to do any extra analytical work, then we're missing a whole hole here that's going to help the town go forward. That's all. That's my point.
Well, that kind of decision really is a town board decision. I mean,
But you need somebody to do the analysis for it. It's a town board decision.
Remember, you're really hiring a town administrator, not manager.
Right.
So, you're actually limiting what you expect him to do with that title.
He or she.
Yeah, he or she. Correct. But taking over roads for the county would be certainly a board decision.
It's a board decision, but you need somebody to do the analysis. That's the point. And that's the tough stuff that certain types of CFOs will do. Like in here, it's probably just, it was an oversight in the first one. I don't think there's anything related to IT. Town administrator has to take that over. They have to be responsible for IT. Now, CFOs, that's a traditional function of that. Town administrator, I think it would have to take that function over, because that's an area in town that needs attention.
I think you have to be careful though, perfect is the enemy of good. And we can go around and around changing a word here and a word there, but the bottom line is that if we don't start the process, we never get there.
Exactly,
So,
and that's what we have to be careful of.
And,
I don't want to get caught up in this process item.
Yeah,
I want to get forward its interview and hear also from the other administrators what they feel is important too. That'll be a little bit of a touchback for us.
what's really great about this whole concept is the town administrative society is extremely open. They're willing to tell you or help you in any way possible. You talk to any town administrator or town manager within the county, within the region, they will give you anything you want to know and recommendations. They're professionals. They're totally non-political, and this just helps their society, their careers. So they're very good about supporting towns that are going this direction, and there's many going this direction. So I think we're in a great position to move forward on this.
Mike, do you have something put together that you can get to us quickly?
Well, I only have, what I prepared after it being approved and then doing the job, being on the board. So I did modifications on my own that I had shared with the task force last year, and then they had their own experience within the town. What I think, and I agree, it shouldn't be dragged out, but I think a proper step would be if you've had two very highly qualified groups of people who have spent time analyzing this, why not have one meeting where everybody's prepared, we propose what the potential job description is, get input from those two groups of people, whoever would choose to attend, and then finalize the job description. Wouldn't that be a fair way to do it? Because if not, then you're not getting the input from two groups of highly qualified people that spent time on this.
I'd rather see them do the interview process, because I think you're wasting time with the specs, because it's, you know where they are, the people are out there, you're gonna have them come in, and it's gonna be the same people, whether you change the spec today or tomorrow. The same people are gonna come in for that interview. So the key is the interview process, not the paperwork. That's my opinion. Of course, you know me, I'm much more of a, do it, get it done. So I just think that's the people is the key.
I think when we do the job interview, some people may highlight a more specific area that their expertise is in, and we can put that down. This person has more expertise in this area, this one has more, and then we can evaluate which one of those expertise we feel fits in better with our needs. I think that's a really good way of doing it. We may find expertise from some of our interviews we never even thought to put on the list.
And that's the reason why
and
that
that's the
finance
feedback
committee
we'll
keep
get.
on the interview process. That's where that comes out.
Right. We're going to get a lot of feedback from these interviews of what they know that this job description can have that we may not even have thought of. They may say, in my background, I have done this and this. You didn't have this on there, I want to add this to the table. They want the job, they're going to put their best foot forward. So we're going to really learn a lot from these people. And I think that's just wonderful to do. That's why having the people to interview them the best they could be will pull out of them all their best features, and we'll be able to evaluate.
Give an example. I was at a meeting this week with the town administrator from Terrytown. He has been in 5 local towns, and he was out in the Midwest at 2 other towns. And he comes with such background and experience of different things and how it's done. I mean, that's what you're getting with these people. And this, writing the job spec is nothing more than getting him in the door, getting him to come and talk to us. So I don't put a lot of, I think the spec that was done originally was fine. And that's my opinion about it. I think the interview process is the key.
Then maybe take it one step further. Between now, when we start the process, and the interview start, we do meet with both committees to have them look at the spec and tell us additional things we should look at, not necessarily in paper, but what we should be asking the candidates.
Well, they're going to be doing the interviews, though.
No, I understand. But we're going to be directing them what to look for. What type of people they're looking for, what type of strengths they're looking for.
Well, I mean, I think if you, to me, it's better to have a broad job description than have something that's overly prescriptive. And I think if you wanted to say something like perform financial analysis at request of the board or something, I mean, that covers pretty much anything I can think of. We're not going to hire someone who can't do that. It's going to come through loud and clear during the interview process. I wouldn't hire someone who couldn't perform some of those
And it's a
functions.
good point, John, but you want to have, I agree, this is never going to be perfect because it's ever changing. The job that we need to get done now is different than the people did it 15 or 16 years ago. That's clear. But you need to make sure that you encompass enough in here that you feel comfortable with, and then the folks that are helping with the process know what specific questions they're asking to ascertain if these people are capable of the functions that we need to get done. Because you can't, I don't agree with you can go about it and say, we might need somebody to come in and run the town. That's not forward thinking. If you've had people who have spent years analyzing this town, and they're saying, these are the gaps and things that need to get done, let's make sure that that's vetted in the interview process. So if you have a broader a description of, sophisticated financial analysis, and then in the interview process, certain things are posed to them, and you can figure out if they have the skill set to do the analysis that we make.
What
That's
I
what
think
you're
would
doing.
be nice, when the interview process is happening, someone's taking notes, and then they gather their thoughts after they interview this person and say, this gentleman's package is X, he's X or she, his expertise in each of these areas, and this is what is unique about them. This is what they can bring forward
Well, I
that
think that's-
relates or doesn't relate.
That's
We
what
can
will
do that
happen.
with-
That's
right.
what will happen.
And I think from that, then we'll be able to evaluate, how the process is going, what questions they ask, how we felt the input is coming backwards for us to be able to evaluate. And I think that's the right way to do it.
Well, I like the opportunity to review this piece that you produced, which I think is very similar, almost identical to the one that was approved. Just compare it to what I had redone last year, and then look at the recommendations of the current Budget and Finance Task Force, the old one we have, and we know that this was based on that. And then, everybody's free to do this, but I'd like to at least give my input if I think there's anything that could be added or changed, and then we finalize the job spec. And then agree on who we have on the committee, and then start the search. Post it out, should be posted properly within the state websites and all that. And I would agree that, when I know you like doing this, Howard, is, put it on a timeline. So we know that, the goal is this position should be filled by X date, then let's work backwards and say, okay, so we should be finished with interviews by this date, which means we have to start interviews by this date, which means we have to post by this date, and we just do it, we create timelines backwards.
Good idea.
Do we have any idea of timeline on this yet, or is that something?
Well, I think that's something you need to kind of set on the clock once you
Sure.
decide the steps.
But I really would like, the timeline is great, and then I know, you've always kept the timeline, so that's a good thing.
I mean, why don't we do that? Do you think that September should be a timeline for?
I was thinking September 30th, but, you know, you gotta account for, let's say you had somebody by
It'd be
beginning of
nice to have
September.
them involved with the budget process.
That's what I was thinking.
If we could get it earlier. I mean, I know summer's hard enough hiring people, but,
Well, why don't we do that? Why don't we set it for September with this, you know, slippage is not fatal but, you know, you might, who knows? I mean, you might find some guy walking in the door and he's the perfect candidate.
Or woman.
twice. So what are we gonna do then for Wednesday?
Yeah, what would you like to do for
Why,
Wednesday?
can you give us
Can you
feedback?
give our
this
feedback
afternoon
on
So
Wednesday?
you can post this, because I think you gotta get this process.
Yeah, I think you do.
I couldn't do it by this afternoon, but I could certainly do it by Wednesday.
Okay.
But
So I'd like to then
Let's
just
have
pass
the
it.
town board meeting.
Wednesday's the town board meeting.
Oh, I thought you meant to put it on the agenda.
Yeah,
Well,
put it on the agenda.
yeah. I'd like to have it on the agenda so we can just start the clock running.
You
Good.
can put it on the agenda, and if we approve it Wednesday, great. If there's a reason not to approve it,
There you go.
at least you started the process.
Exactly.
I
Good.
think that's fair.
Good. Okay.
I'll work on it over the weekend, and then from that, you know, then we can set the timeline from that point on. And you asked us for names that you would, I think probably the number is 5 or 7, one odd number, I think, on the committee. So the smaller is better, so maybe it's 5.
Yeah.
I
you
think
know.
we'll do the names off camera.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, no, we're not going to decide that today.
I'm just saying, I'm just confirming that he
Yes.
asked us to provide them with names.
How much overlap was there any
None.
overlap between the two committees? None.
And there, you know, some people don't want to be on the committee anymore, I'm
Yeah.
sure, so it's.
But I'm sure that we could find 5, 6 people. Howard, is this going to go on to the website or any type of advertising for the job?
Probably eventually, yeah.
Okay. My only point to it is that,
Typo?
no, not a typo. The fact that it mentions the Byronville School District and leaves out Valhalla,
Sure.
could be, so we have a lot of,
Well-
Plains,
Bedford.
Bedford. And also the fact it says it's 684, and again, you know, for the North White Plains, it is important on that 287, which is also a good highway.
You want to mention the Bronx River too?
No.
Geography lesson?
No, it's just, you know, we all get accused of, you know, forgetting that there's a southern part of this town.
Maybe like a combination of school districts and.
Still fresh in my mind from last year. Oh, you have to have a shot.
I know.
Of which Byron Hills was an excellent school, of excellence.
Okay. I mean, this,
I mean, just.
I've obviously plagiarized some of this from other places.
Yeah, I figured that.
A lot of the administrators we talked to, deputies, you find?
No, they don't. I think because of the budget situation, most of the deputies are run by the board. Scarsdale is one of them I know that has deputies.
They don't
That
have
we don't have
any.
anymore. The deputy is now
It's
the
a
town.
supervisor. I mean,
administrator.
it's administrative.
Rye or Rye Town, or Rye City, whatever one of those are, does have a deputy.
You sure?
Yeah, but it's, it might be Rice City.
Tarrytown does not. Newcastle does not. Don't think Merrimack does anymore. See, a lot of them have dropped it because of, I think, financial reasons.
All right, so I'll be prepared for Wednesday with any feedback.
Right. That concludes our discussion.